Welcome to Positive Philter with your host, Philip Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career with a little self-help around the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope that what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place. Hey, Positive Philter listeners. It's Philip Wilkerson back with another episode of Positive Philter. Today I'm joined by a special guest, the international man of mystery, my brother, my fraternity brother, Shannon Thompson. How you doing today?
I'm doing well myself. How about yourself, bro?
Doing good. And so, for the listeners, give a little bit of a background about yourself, and then I can kind of give the listeners how we got to know each other and whatnot.
Hey, no worries. Again, this is Shannon Thompson, and I am currently working at in the government as an HR person, HR manager. I'm in school, taking a couple classes, working on a PhD in political science, and as Phil mentioned, I'm a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. It's pretty much who I am.
Well, it's funny. Me and Shannon met through the fraternity, but we met in a non-traditional way. So just to put it in other words. So when you're going through the process, I'm a more recent initiate of Theta Rho Lambda, the chapter that we share. And while you're going through what we call the process of getting to know the chapter, you're supposed to fellowship and network with a chapter to let them know that you're interested. And while meeting brothers of the chapter, I had a good friend that was already in the chapter by the name of Matt Johnson, and he told me, since I'm an educator, that the one person I definitely needed to connect with and speak to was Shannon. And so I said, yeah, of course. I'm being the extrovert that I am. I definitely love to network and meet new people. And so I said, hey, can you give me his number so I can follow up or introduce myself? Didn't really have many opportunities to go out to events at the chapter. My wife was pregnant, so usually I had to connect with people, having phone calls and getting to know people. But Matt was like, no, show some resiliency or something. You'll figure it out. And so he's like, you'll get his number and you'll figure it out. I trust that you can do that. And I said, okay. And months went by, and fortunate for me, I was initiated into our wonderful fraternity. And the first night of my initiation, when I was a brother of the fraternity, we went to celebrate at a restaurant, and you shook my hand. You said, nice to meet you. I'm Shannon. And I said immediately, oh, you're the guy I was supposed to talk to months ago. And so that was our introduction to each other.
Right.
But since then, his sense of humor, we became friends, and that was pretty funny that we were destined to meet each other months later. And so I share a love for, obviously I'm in higher ed, and I have a love for education. But you said you're an HR representative, but can you tell the listeners a little bit about your ties to education?
Oh yeah, sure. So I am personally one who believes in always being in student mode. So much information out there to learn, but because I am not an actual educator by trade, and I have an affinity for education, I decided to launch a nonprofit organization called Beacon Foundation. And the primary focus was to award scholarships to individuals in the community who aspire to become community leaders. And then also we just did a full gamut of different service projects to give our potential future leaders exposure to doing service in the community, so that when it's time for applying for college or jobs in the real world, they'll have some experience in their belt and appreciation for their potential constituents in the field. And so I did that for about 4 years before we ended up dissolving the organization. But then also part of our fraternity, I was responsible for getting the educational foundation, which is an extension of the chapter, is 501c3 status. So although I'm not educated by trade, I do as much as I can to support education because I believe in it. So I give much kudos and respect to those who actually do teach the field because they are feeding the future leaders of our community. So much appreciation to you too, Phil, for what you do.
Oh yeah, I mean, I guess I'm in a different realm. You know, as an educator, I would consider, you know, like as a career counselor, so it's a different aspect in higher ed. But you know, I get a chance to connect with students and hopefully get them employment and help them fulfill what they want to do. So it's greatly appreciated that you have that educators in high regard, because education sometimes is not the big paying fancy jobs, but it does have a huge impact on people's lives.
Most definitely.
So the topic of this episode, we're both, I would say, people of the world. I would like to think back before in my past life I was well traveled, and currently Shannon is well traveled now. We share a passion or like of traveling and seeing different parts of the world. And so I thought that for this episode, our topic would be how international travel has impacted us and our love for seeing the world. But I think I call him the international man of mystery because it's kind of like Carmen Sandiego. Like, you never know where in the world Shannon is, because if you follow him and you're friends with him on Instagram, you'll just be hanging out and you look on his Instagram and he's tagging himself in Rome, or he's tagging himself in Barcelona, or but look, you know, how does this desire to see the world and these wonderful trips start?
So it started out from I had a good friend, John Moore, who had shared with me that he was planning on going to South Africa and Zimbabwe for a birthday. I think his major milestone might have been 35th or something around that. But anywho, so he told me he was going by himself, which was the biggest shocker to me because generally people don't travel by themselves, especially not to Africa. But he, through his story, convinced me to venture outside my comfort zone and travel by myself. He definitely came back and gave me a full report of all the good and not so any bad experiences, but just more so lessons learned from travel by himself and just travel, period. But it was inspiring for me to just say, hey, if he can go travel the world by himself on different continents, then I have really no excuse doing it myself. So he kind of planted that seed in me to go travel the world, and so, but especially solo. I think that's the big thing about it. You know, you try to make plans with friends, fraternal brothers, family, etc., and, you know, to go different places, and people just back out the last minute. And so here you are stuck not going somewhere where you want to go because you want to, like, go with. And so I just kind of learned, hey, I'm just going to do this by myself and just learn to appreciate my me time. So I've been doing it for past few months now. Well, probably a while. It's been a year. Time's flown by.
I feel like a year. Yeah, I feel like
it has been a year. It has been a year. So in the past year, I have been, for the most part, traveling by myself to different places. But it was one of those things where I kind of took baby steps into this process. And so my first trip, quote unquote, alone was technically when I went to Rome, Italy. And so one of the beauties and benefits of traveling is you get to meet people all over the world. And so I had met a buddy of mine, well, now a friend, that we met in Paris. And so me, African American male, I was there with some other friends in Paris, and we met some other Black and brown people. And, you know, when you're abroad, you tend to kind of naturally gravitate towards one another. So we just started talking, grabbed some drinks, having a good time. And then he invited us to come visit in Rome. So, of course, I was only one to move on his invitation. So I decided to go ahead and go to Rome, fly by myself, and I just crashed with him there. And naturally, there's some apprehension with going to a foreign place by myself. But once I got there, I really relied on him to kind of guide me through the city, to do the tour, show me all the things I needed to see, food to try, drinks to drink, etc. So that trip was what ignited the affinity, the passion for continuing to see the world elsewhere. So it started way back in Rome.
Yeah, right. Like do it when you're in Rome, do as the Romans do. So you go to different places. How do you decide where you want to go next, and what is your, with all this traveling now, have you developed like your own bucket list of places you have to see in the world?
So for me, what happened was because I haven't had much international travel prior to this year, literally I could just take a dart and throw it at the map and just go there because I hadn't been to many places at that point. And so I was very open, I guess is my point. And so when trying to go to decide where to go, it's really about your budget, like what your budget can dictate. And so you can, I would definitely suggest be as resourceful as possible. And so if you need to go to Expedia, hotels.com, wherever, find you a deal. And not only just find you a deal, but also if you're going by yourself, make sure that the place you're going is one where the culture is pretty safe. I know talking to a lot of females, they tend to be worried about traveling alone just because of the safety concern. I get that. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like, if you're a woman, you want to travel somewhere solo, just be mindful of going places where crimes tend to be low, and there aren't many attacks against women. But then also for me, I decided to factor in the weather. I mean, no point in going to Plaza Mill and it's raining.
Right, exactly. Right. Right. That makes sense.
Yeah, and I'm not going, me personally, I'm not going to leave DC area on a winter day to go to Europe where it's been cold there too. So I kind of just take all those things to account: the weather, budget, lodging, safety. Make sure that's in place. So it's kind of simple, but it's a little bit of work that's required when deciding. But for the most part, it's like literally where's a destination where I think I can experience the most growth.
There you go. There you go. That's pretty amazing to see that and become a system. And also, like, I'm joking on Instagram, like, how long you typically, I see you go on these trips not very long. Like, how long do you typically stay in these places that you go to internationally?
So no, it just depends on how long the flight is and how much there's to do. So generally, another thing that I guess I forgot that takes into account is I'll do a little bit of research on the place that I'm going, and based on what I find, that will kind of dictate how long I plan to stay there. So I recently went to Prague last weekend, and I knew that there weren't going to be a whole lot of things there to do because I would just go to Google or any search engine and search for like the top 10 things to do, and based on what I saw, it wasn't like a trip where there would be a whole lot of things to check off the bucket list. Again, that's based really kind of varies on what you're into. But yeah, so for me, I can appreciate the science, but I don't need to walk through a museum.
Right, yeah, that's more, yeah. I feel you. That's like different. I mean, that's not your cup of tea.
No, it's not. It's not. Like, I'm grateful for science and all that, discoveries, how it has benefited me and others, but I don't need to walk through a museum. So that's kind of something that doesn't really speak to me. But I'll go down and see the museum, like the building itself, but then I won't bother going inside. So it just really depends what's going on. But for the most part, my trips usually vary for like about 3 days at the most.
Right. I see that as like a quick turnaround and then with the work and then come back and go to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get right back into the mode of work. That's crazy.
Look, man, it's tough because, like I said, I work and I'm in school. And so literally when I got back in from Prague that Monday night, because that was my off day at work, that Tuesday I had to go to work. So it was tough, but you do what you got to do.
You're doing it. Do what you got to do. And So okay, so what is the ultimate goal? How many countries, if you can count, how many countries have you been to so far?
Let me see. So far, I've been to Berlin, Brussels, Tokyo, Santo Domingo, Prague, Paris, let's see, Madrid, Barcelona, that's Spain. I did Rome, Rio, San Juan is American territory, but it's still separate.
Yeah.
London, Amsterdam, Panama, and let's see. Oh yeah, Canada. I went to Toronto. So what's that, about 10 countries so far?
That's good. That's not. I probably could list mine too, but like I said, all mine are in my past life. You know, right now I'm traveling from Burt to Alexandria. That's my the extent of my traveling right now.
I mean,
but I had that, like I said, I'll say it was amazing. I think, you know, I'm a military brat, so lucky for me, all my extensive traveling was kind of done under the safety of with my family and my parents. So I kind of don't have the experience of what you're doing, is putting yourself out there and doing it, you know, as an adult solo. You know, most of my traveling was under the protection of my parents, and it was
right.
you know, comforting, and it was normalized because I did it as a kid. So for me, when I go to different places in the world or different, you know, for me, I don't think I almost feel like I took for granted how unique that experience is. You know,
Yeah.
I looked on Facebook and it was just a random thing, like, you know, say how many states you've lived in and how many states you've visited.
Yeah.
And the average was only like 8, and I was like, that's really crazy to me, you know.
Yeah.
Just eight visited.
Yeah.
Like, that's, for me, my perception of that was crazy because that's not the way I lived. I've lived and seen different places. And when if someone was like, you know, for your experiences, you'll Phil, come visit me in Rome. I'm like, okay, you know, like, I bet I would love to just go on a solo trip to places around the world because, like, you know, I definitely, enjoy that growing up. That seeing the world and different things, and I didn't have, you know, like I said, for me, it was as a child doing it, I kind of normalized it. So
Right.
But we both probably got from your perspective, we both probably got the same out of international travel.
Yeah, definitely.
Some of the same benefits, regardless of when we did it in life.
Yeah, I mean, I think that for you, by you experiencing it a lot younger, it probably has shaped and formulated your opinion, your view of the world at a much earlier age in life. And so, although for me, I haven't traveled abroad, I did travel, you know, pretty extensively throughout the country. So I can appreciate diversity to the fullest extent as possible, you know, just being here in the States. But as an adult, you know, and traveling to all these different places, I'm at liberty to experience and do more things than probably you when you were younger.
Right.
But
for sure. Yeah, you definitely could. Yeah. You know, you didn't actually drink. That's what you're trying to go around there to say, yeah, you can drink.
Yeah, but
you know, get in the club. You can do some things, you know. When I was a kid, I could just take pictures of the Eiffel Tower, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Exactly.
Turn around. That's it. That was the extent of my seeing the world. And so we all know eating and drinking was it. Eat, Clay, Love. You know, the full experience of traveling the world is the food and drinks and talking to people and socializing and you know, the full scope. So what's one of one of your least favorite? We're gonna go least favorite because we'll both talk about our least favorite place and then we'll talk about our favorite place. So what is one of your least favorite places so far? No shade to the whole country, but you know it is what it is.
I get asked that question all the time, and you know, I'm not trying to be politically correct here, but I will say is that I haven't had a least favorite place yet, and I think that that's largely due to the fact that every time I go somewhere, I go there with an open mind, open heart to embracing the culture the way that it is. And granted, I'm going to like major cities, so I'm probably seeing more of the commercialized side of places.
Yeah, the metropolitan, yeah.
Exactly. So, I think for me going there with such an open heart, open mind, it helps me to appreciate the culture as it is. And so, I recently went to, Japan, for instance, right? Which I absolutely loved, had a great time there. But the first thing that stood out to me was like how clean it was. Like I didn't see any debris, any dirt, nothing on the ground. And it was just shocking to me. And it kind of just made me realize like, okay, the Japanese must really take great pride in their community, maintaining, keeping it clean, et cetera. And so, that stood out to me because I've heard other people refer to Europe as being dirty, especially, well, the person said most specifically London. And I was like, no, London's not that bad. It wasn't that dirty to me. And so, and I think it's all based on one's starting point of reference. And so coming from the States, to me, London was kind of equivalent, like one and the same. But after visiting Tokyo, I was like, oh, okay, well, now I can see why someone would say it's dirty. But again, I went there with the mind of being a learner. Like, what good can I take from this experience? And how can I allow this experience to positively change me? So I haven't had I don't have any least favorite countries. I think there's probably some where I would not be so open to visit again, not because something was wrong, just because there wasn't a whole lot there to do. So, for instance, Prague was a city that's very beautiful, architectural design. It's a very religious place, so it's kind of sacred, and it holds religion to such a high regard. And there's a historical context meaning behind it, but it's one place where if I'll never go visit again, I probably won't lose any sleep. But I did thoroughly enjoy it.
Yeah. Right. I would say one of my least favorite places, this is kind of sad, was going to Dublin, going to Ireland.
Okay.
The reason I say that is that, my mother-in-law, she's Irish, and we had this hyped up vision of it, and I went with my wife, who was half Irish, and we just had this, like, big picture, like this, the land of her heritage and her ancestors,
right?
All this stuff, and we get there, and it was like we almost got mugged. And
wow.
And it was dirty, and like people were drunk, and we didn't leave Dublin, you know what I'm saying? And so I think my perception of that is the opposite. Like, I always encourage people, if you go to countries, don't just go to the major cities. Go to places like I think if I were to redo that trip again, I definitely would have gone to the countryside, which I heard in Ireland is beautiful, but we didn't. So I would say out of all the trips I've been to, like Dublin or England, Ireland, not England, Ireland is probably my least favorite. But then, like, one of my most memorable trips, I guess I would say most memorable, but I don't know if I could say it's my favorite or most memorable, was the one I did an episode previously with my friend Wayne too, was China. The reason being that was because it was completely different. I've been to many, I would say what you call westernized countries, European countries.
Yeah.
And then also I've been to Africa, I've been to South Africa and Zimbabwe and Egypt, and it was cool to see people like me, people of color.
Right.
And even when you go to certain European countries, you see people of color. If you go to London, you see a few black people in London. In Ireland, Dublin, which is a major city, you see black people. I mean, major metropolitan areas, you'll see people from all over the world.
Right.
But when I went to China, that literally was like the first time in the world where I was like, I don't see anyone like me. Like, it was not. I definitely, it was when I went with the JMU for college for a summer study abroad, and it was 12 Chinese Americans or students that have Chinese descent, or about 12, half of it, 12 white kids, and then me. So I was the only black kid.
Gotcha.
And I stood out like a sore thumb. Like, I think I could count how many times people came up to me, like Chinese people came up to me and took pictures with me. like just because they probably never seen a black person. And I ate that junk up though.
Yeah, for sure.
I was like taking the pictures, doing the peace sign. Like it was like I was telling them, I was joking with all my friends from Jamie. Like I'm trying to get I think I get to 30 people that want to take pictures with me. My point is that was the most memorable trip because it was totally the philosophy of life, the Eastern world. There is a Western mentality and an Eastern mentality. The meals were different. You know, we ate every meal family style.
Yeah.
With the big round table. And it was just like that one is like it's been almost over. It was summer 2006. And it's about 12 years and that still was the most memorable trip. And I still stayed in touch with I made a podcast episode with my friend Wayne too. So like it's so memorable, like it's burnt in my brain. So I understand the need for traveling to get outside your comfort zone. And that was like when I was talking about I normalized it, like being a kid and being with my family. That was like one of my main, even though it was under the protection of a study abroad, that was my main adult trip. It was without my family. It was outside of my comfort zone. It was different. And I kind of like, it was like, I loved it. I was like one of the best trips I ever had. And so I totally connect on your opinion of seeing the world in a different lens and going somewhere that's not, if you recommend to people to travel internationally, you know, sometimes it's cool to play it safe and go to like Cancun or these like famous, these famous vacation spots. But sometimes it is very good to go somewhere where it's different, like India or something, like somewhere where there's not any people that look like you or the people that don't talk like you, and try to figure a way around and be resourceful. And I had to do that too in China. Like there was times where we couldn't talk, but I had to figure out how to communicate with people. You know, things like that. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely had similar experience in Tokyo. I mean, I wasn't on celebrity status like you know, paparazzi chasing me and stuff. But
I think for some reason I feel like the Japanese see a lot more people from all over the world than the Chinese. I mean, like Tokyo's big entertainment. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So two interesting things. One, I think what makes the difference is being an American going to Japan, you don't need a visa, but you need a visa to go to China. So I think that I think that plays a major factor in why many people just aren't as open to go to China and more open to go to Japan just because it's much more convenient to go to Japan. But I had a colleague of mine that worked who just last week told me that she's African American and she went to China some years ago and she had the same exact experience. And she pretty much said the same exact thing that you were saying with far as folks taking pictures of her, wanting signatures and all that stuff. So I definitely can't wait to check out China because I want to like celebrity too, so I could have the same experience.
You got to beat me if you want to beat me. You got to take pictures of 30 people, strangers, and then you'll beat me. Go to Tiananmen Square. That's like when I got like half of those pictures were Tiananmen Square. Terracotta soldiers, you know. But it's also one of the coolest things about international travel to me is seeing the things that you read about in books. It's kind of the most surreal thing to see like something that you felt like was so far away and so, you know, ancient and so old and things that you're like, I can't believe my eyes are seeing this, and then you actually see it. And that's probably one of the coolest things about traveling internationally. Seeing, you know, when I went to Egypt, actually seeing pyramids. It was so crazy. It's like you see these things that you read about. You see this actual history. Or, you know, when I went to China, we actually went on the Great Wall. We walked on the Great Wall of China. I was like, wow, this is stuff that people read about. And I definitely never take that for granted. And I also know that's not everyone's experience. Like, I don't talk to people like, oh, yeah, just a week ago I was in China. Like, you know, like, because I know that a lot, you know, especially people of color in the United States don't get those opportunities to travel. And I don't know, you know, I wish that was some way where if a kid got a scholarship to college or something, that part of the scholarship would make them, like, I feel like it'd be great if they were forced during their scholarship to do one study abroad experience. Because I feel like every student would benefit from that at least once.
Yeah, it definitely helps build character. Without a doubt. Like, man, I know some schools present students with the opportunity of studying abroad, and so for me to be a kid from Forestville, I went to the University of Maryland College Park, and we had options available, but it was something that I didn't think was truly available for me. One, you gotta have a passport, and two, you gotta have funds to go. But I think that if you do due diligence, there's always a way to do it. Either you can do like a GoFundMe account, or you can talk to someone at the school to see if there's anybody there or any organization that's willing to help front the cause, or get a part-time job in the summertime, and just save your money. Do what you gotta do, instead of blowing refund checks on just
sneakers and shit on the TV. Yeah, I know. Yeah. I totally agree with that. Like, I mean, my parents, fortunately military parents, and my parents are quite accomplished, but I still took out student loans for my studies.
Yeah.
They were like, if this is something you want to do, you'll make it work. And
right.
they gave me the independence to figure it out a little bit and take out my student loans for the school year to go toward a summer session. But I think you're right. Like, you got to be creative with ways to fund this. Whether it's a school scholarship or I don't know, just find out a way. But I just think that there's some way built into education how much tuition is that I feel like as an experiential learning experience, I think that every student should have. I think every student should while they're in school, but in general, as you grow up, I think that to live a full life. And not to say people don't live full lives, but I think that it'd be great to just everyone have an opportunity to at least go out of the country at least once.
Yeah.
Go somewhere different, at least once in your lifetime, because there's so many great life lessons you learn from going somewhere different than where you're from.
Yeah. So one of my first trips out of the country, well, technically the second one, is when I went to Punta Cana, and this was some years ago, right? And Punta Cana is pretty much known for the resorts. You go there for relaxation, stay in a resort, and that's pretty much it. And so you really don't get the chance to see the city in its natural form. And so unless you leave the resort. And so my friend and I, it was her birthday, and she wanted to go ziplining. And so in order to go ziplining, you had to drive through the city, the jungle, all over to just get to the course. But what stood out to me, a couple of things from that trip. One, the employees that were working there on the resorts, they looked at such peace, like no worries, no troubles at all. And I found it fascinating that, I can't imagine them making a whole lot of money making drinks on resorts or passing out towels, but it just kind of gave me a little bit of insight into their culture and the way they prioritize things, because here in the States, we working 80 hours a week to pay for a $1 million mortgage and drive a luxury car, and we look stressed. We look tired. But so that kind of just made me think, like, well, what am I working for? Like, but that's a whole separate issue. But when we did drive to the zip line, of course, we got a chance to see the native people that didn't live or work on the resort, and it was a very impoverished area that we had to drive through, and pretty much the tour guide told us to keep our hands, arms, feet inside the vehicle, don't try to reach out. They'll reach out to ask for money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you can kind of see that it's a very destituted area. And so for me, it's like, wow, how dare I complain about not having the latest pair of Jordans or the biggest flat screen TV when you have people who are literally just so famished, so just in need of basic life necessities that you and I take for granted here in the States. So I think that too stood out the most from Punta Cana, but all that just kind of made me question a lot of the values and beliefs that I had prior to going. We're told to go to school, get you a good paying job, so you can have the biggest house on the block and have the most expensive car with the big rims, et cetera. You know what I'm saying? And here these people are living, working at resorts, looking peaceful. Then you have other side of people who don't appear to have jobs, and they are just starving for just the next meal. So for me, I take one in being a positive person and not complaining about much of anything. And so because I realized just from that experience and many other experiences I've seen, but it's just kind of like things could always, always be worse than what they currently are. So I think just traveling and being in different areas, it has broadened my horizon to just really, really appreciate just the simple things, the plain things in life. So I think by seeing that at a much younger age also kind of helped set the trajectory of my life, where I'm not looking for a job trying to chase the dollar, but more so looking for fulfillment.
That I totally agree with that, and I saw that too. When you go to any countries, if you see the poor, our poor is not much comparable to the poor of other poor.
Yeah.
You see it, and but then the flip side, if you see some wealth, like old money, our rich is probably not the richest of people that have had riches for centuries. Like old European English money. You know what I'm saying? Or old wealth. But point is, you have a different perspective of wealth, and you have a different perspective of community.
Right.
You have a different perspective of food and all kinds of different things based on what you see when you travel abroad, and you'll never get that experience. You can see a little bit of it in documentaries, and you can watch Netflix or watch some old episodes of Anthony Bourdain's show when he used to travel abroad and stuff.
Right.
But it's nothing like seeing it with your own eyes or smelling it. Like I went certain countries where they just like when I was in Cairo, they just had mounds of trash in the street. There's all the different senses that bring to reality what that environment's like that you can't just see in a magazine. The smelling and the sounds and all those different things that you have to experience.
Yeah.
Being there and being present. So those are the ways that shape my perception. But kind of going back home almost, we're kind of going deep in this episode. What are some tips you would give to someone that wants to create this new journey and wants to travel and try something different, such as yourself, now as as an adult rather than being exposed as a kid? What's some suggestions you have for that person?
Good question. I think that I would say challenge yourself to the fullest extent possible, and so taking into account that we all have different strengths and weaknesses, you really gotta challenge yourself and know where you are in your life and what you're open to, what you feel comfortable doing, and where there's a potential growth opportunity. And so if traveling to Asia, where no one looks like you, totally different language, symbols, then don't go that far.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I mean, go somewhere in Mexico where the flight is not as long, and you can have an easier time getting back to the States if need be. Mexico has an area where English is a pretty well-spoken language, certain parts of Mexico that you go to. So I would say venture out into the more touristy, populated places where you're pushing yourself a little bit more. You're in a different country, but you're not completely vulnerable. But if you're one who can afford to take a more adventurous trip, go to Europe. I mean, there's always cheaper flights going to Paris, Amsterdam. London's a little expensive, but there's a lot of flights there.
London's expensive for sure.
But, push yourself, Amsterdam, a lot of people go there from the States. And so English is not the main language, but you have a number of people that still speak English, especially in a well-populated area. In Paris, same situation. If you go to the main areas, English is still spoken. I mean, it may not be as fluent as you would like, but that's the growth opportunity going somewhere where you have to maybe learn a little bit of French just to kind of, get around, get food, and all that. But for the most part, you'll be okay. But for me, I knew going to Tokyo was well far outside my element. And that was probably the one trip where I was afraid, a little scared, just because of the language barrier. And just being honest, there was a point in time where I got frustrated. Well, a couple times, but it was me trying to use the transit, the metro system there. They have two different systems, the subway and the rail system, and they both are pretty complex. And so you kind of depended on people who may not speak English as fluently, but once you get it, you got it. And so for me, to get back to your question, just take appropriate steps for yourself where you do find opportunity to grow. If money is a concern, generally if you go down, go south of the states to Mexico, Central America, South America, or Latin America, the dollar goes a lot farther than the local peso. And so just take all those things into account. But I think the biggest hang up for most people is just simply making a decision and acting on it. And so if you just simply just go ahead and be impulsive a little bit, book that ticket and reserve that room, then the rest is just simply a matter of logistics of, okay, how do I get around where I'm going to eat? But to me, that's the fun part, trying to figure that out. Like, you go anywhere new, there's going to be different food that you can try. So just find ways to keep you committed to going on that trip. But once you get that guarantee that you're going to be so grateful for the experience.
That's amazing advice. That's really cool. I kind of agree with that sentiment too. I think some of the tips that, if I were to drop some tips, I think the main thing that I'm learning from you and other things too is that if you're a very impulsive person like I am, then you probably need to dial back and just be a little bit more planned though. So I think having a plan, for me, when I do all these trips and when I went internationally with my family or went with Maggie, who is a little bit more, not a little, like a lot more organized. Right. I had the mindset of just go. And I have no problem going. But it is good to have, like, how much it's going to cost, what can we do, set an agenda for the day and all that stuff. That's really helpful for people that are going internationally. Just kind of set some structure to it, so you feel, because I think even with the spontaneity of going places, it's good to have a little bit of comfort knowing that certain plans can go this way or where you're going to stay and, emergent things in case of emergencies and things like that. But
so you're right. And you're absolutely correct. And I would tell anyone to what I do, because I do travel alone. On the iPhone, you have the ability to allow someone to track your location. Like, I think that's
find my friends, right?
Find my friend. And so if there were ever a situation, granted, someone can at least locate my phone and hopefully I'm near it.
Exactly.
So if you're one who needs that structure, for me, I don't like it. I can't stand it because I live a structured life with school and work. So when I'm travel, I want to be able to just kind of pick and choose the moment of where I want to go. But if you prefer structure, definitely come up with a plan. You can Google everything. Like when I travel, I go to a place with the idea of at least 10 things I want to see, which by doing my research while I get there saves me time having to do it once I'm there. So I have an idea of all the attractions I do want to see. And so, like you said, Phil, have a plan, and make sure people know where you're going. Give information to friends, family, where you're staying. Give them your itinerary for travel so that they can try to monitor you as much as possible where you're away. So always have a contingency plan. You can reach out to your local embassy where you go, the USA embassy, and provide them information. And you should know where they're located as well, just in case there's an emergency. So just be mindful of that too.
True. Okay, so we're hitting a 45-minute mark, so maybe we'll kind of wrap it up. But for my last episode, one of my guests, my friend Marty, came up with this new concept where You can ask me one random question. I ask you one random question. It has nothing to do with this topic of international travel. You just got to answer honestly, kind of a surprise question round. And so, you want to go first? I go first.
You go first.
All right. So, this mine's generic. Why alpha? Yeah, I was like, that was going to pop in my head. Why alpha?
What I would say is that that's a good question. Life has an interesting way of opening doors and closing doors for you, and so what I've come to learn is to trust the universe. And with that being said, I also found me, and so what I mean by that is I was talking to now another frat brother at the time, it was just a friend, and he had said that he was looking to join Alpha, and at that point in time I had never considered Alpha. But after talking to him, doing some research on my own, I already knew a whole host of alphas, but prior to Alpha I was considering another fraternity. And so,
which will be unnamed. Are we going to keep it unnamed? Yeah, we are. Here we are.
Remain nameless.
Nameless. Unnamed. All right. So you knew you did your research as you do. It seems like there's a common thread. You did your research. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you guys. I did my research, and I just ended up talking to some people, and I just kind of felt like the values, the principles were much more better aligned with who I am, where I want to go, than what I was considering exploring from another fraternity. And so once I got to know brothers in Theta Lambda, the chapter that made you and me, I felt like it was a perfect fit. I love my chapter, and I love everything that we do, the Brotherhood, the programs that we put on. It gave me a chance to meet brothers who are very, very much so similar to me in nature of being determined, ambitious, but we all come from different walks of life, and that I appreciate. Phil, you and I, we talked plenty of times about how people stereotype you based on how you sound, talk, things that interest you. But it's those things that I value most about you. And I think that because of Alpha, because of TRL being the way that it is, it brought you to me because I crossed first, so.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I sure got you. Got you first. All right, I appreciate that, bro. All right, so what's your random question for me?
That's good. I wasn't expecting this question.
Yeah, that's right. It's off the outline.
I see. It's good. Let me think. Given your position, where you are in life, what advice you think you'd give me?
Oh man. I guess advice. I don't know. Am I older?
Huh?
Am I older? Am I older than you?
No, I'm 35. I think you're younger than me, right?
Okay. Yeah, I'm 33. Okay. So what advice would I give to someone? Give to you, particularly?
Give to me.
Well, I guess I can go from my career counseling aspect.
Okay.
Like, you're getting your master's, right? And I think that's your next stepping stone. And I already,
No, so I'm getting my PhD.
You getting your PhD? Jesus. I can't give you any advice because you're probably
no, that's unacceptable.
Because like you're getting a PhD. I want a PhD. Okay. Kids? Do you want to have kids?
I want one.
Okay. Then I can give you advice on that.
All right,
cool. Okay. So, kids, quite honestly, are the hardest and most rewarding thing of all time. Like, there's times where me having kids, I get really frustrated. All these things I wish I could do if I didn't have kids. But then there's things my kids do, and it gives me like so much fulfillment, and like it like submits my purpose. Like it gives me drive. Like I want to be a good person at work because I want to provide for my family. I want to be like honestly, it was one of the reasons why I pursued Alpha Now. Like I wanted to surround myself with great men that would have align my values and uplift me while I contribute to the greater good of the world. And I want to set those examples for my sons, plural. So, those things like having kids cements that. But what I would say about kids that I tell a lot of people before they have kids is that figure out your own stuff before you have kids. Because what I call kids, I say they're giant mirrors, and they expose whatever things that you had and exacerbate it.
Oh, wow.
They make you turn that mirror. They make you turn that mirror on yourself. So if you're insecure about X, Y, and Z, when you have kids, it doesn't help. It makes you're more insecure. If you're not good with your money, try to solve your money issues, because having kids, you're not going to have no money.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
If you are one that's not ambitious and don't have career goals, having kids is going to stifle, not really. It's going to expose the things that you need to work on, and it's going to magnify it, especially if it's in a partnership with someone else too. Like if you have issues in your marriage, kids don't solve the issues in your marriage; they times it by 10. So, what I encourage people to do is when you're thinking about having kids, really examine what you need to work on for yourself, because to be able to provide for them and give them the best life that you want to possibly give, you got to make sure that you're addressing the things that you're having a hard time with, because you having to take care of a little person, you gotta make sure that you're in a good space yourself to take care of them. So my only advice is, if you have some things that you're trying to figure out, or things that you need to go to counseling for, or things that you need to talk to or just process or get better at, try to work on those strategies before you have kids, because it's not easier once you do have kids. So that's my main advice I can give.
Gotcha.
Mr. PhD. I need to talk to you about that offline, because I'm in the thoughts of pursuing that. So then I'm just following all kinds of footsteps after Shannon, right? Traveling the world, maybe next. Joining Alpha. Brother of the Year, chapter Brother of the Year. You're the one that sets the bar here, So I don't know how much advice I can give.
Right. Well,
I'll give a little bit of advice.
So Phil, here's the thing about it. The purpose of the question that I asked you was to show that regardless of where you are or how you perceive yourself, you can always teach somebody something else.
Right.
So
sure.
so just always be mindful of that. And I have to apply the same principle to myself too, that I can always learn something from somebody.
For sure. So we're almost at the end of the episode. I always want to give people an opportunity to plug whatever things they're working on, adventures, social media, whatever. So what are some things you'd like to highlight for the listeners?
I think the biggest thing to wrap up is the glass is always half full. Like, despite how bad a situation might perceive or might actually be, that the bad times won't last always. The sun will shine again, and just spread more positivity in the world, because you never know how your positive gesture, positive word, positive attitude can have a significant impact on somebody else. So just remember, the glass is always half full.
For sure. And then what's some plugs? You got any plugs that you want to share with the listeners?
If anybody want to check me out, I'm on Instagram. My name is Shannon1906 _. And I just created a travel page on Instagram. As of right now, there aren't any photos up, but that'll definitely be dropping soon. The name is Tips on Travel. That's TIPSONTRAVL, one word. Tips on Travel, and more photos will be coming soon.
Awesome. And also, lastly, too, the 503c Educational Foundation that you started, you're definitely thinking about donating or contributing to that, right? So
yes. So
provide scholarships.
Yeah, you're right. I forgot to mention, if you're looking to support a worthy cause, please make a donation to the Education Foundation that's associated with Theta Orlando, Alpha Phi Alpha. We're doing some pretty good, amazing things. Phil, as you know, we recently had a shoe drive.
Yes. And I think I got more shoes. I don't know.
I can't confirm or deny, but, I know that I had a trunk full of shoes and back seat full of shoes, so I never counted it. And unfortunately, I guess fortunate for you, because I didn't count, I can't say who got more shoes. But at the end of the day, it's for a good cause. And
for a good cause, yes.
So I appreciate that healthy competition, although I think you lost, but...
Right. But yeah, so thank you and support those things. We'll have all notes in the show notes for Shannon's travel tips, his new Instagram and things. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, feel free to hit us up. Like I said, spreading positivity is a movement. It doesn't really take much effort to be a good person and treat people right. So thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to Positive Philter, a podcast that focuses on family, friends, career, with a little self-help along the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends, and like the Facebook page, Spreading Positivity a Movement. Thanks for listening.